Hello, and welcome. Take a moment now, wherever you are, to let yourself settle. Loosen your shoulders. Let the day go soft at the edges. There is nothing you need to do for the next little while. Nothing to solve. Nothing to carry. Just rest, and let my voice move slowly alongside you. Tonight's story is a true one. It is a story about patience, and about how the largest things can sometimes turn on the smallest. It is a quiet story, in its way, even though it took years to reach its end. So breathe in gently, and breathe out, and let us begin. Our story takes place in the north of England, in the county of Yorkshire. Picture it for a moment. Rolling moorland under a low gray sky. Towns of dark stone, slick with rain. Long streets lit by amber lamps that hum softly in the damp. Leeds, Bradford, Sheffield. Cities built on wool and iron. Full of working people, full of small kitchens with the kettle on. Through the late 1970s, a shadow lay across these places. For several years, a man moved through the region who was never seen clearly, never named, never known. The newspapers gave him a grim title that I will not dwell on tonight. The police gave him a case file that grew, and grew, and grew. And the people of Yorkshire learned to walk a little faster after dark, to glance behind them, to keep the porch light on. We will not linger on the harm itself. That is not what we are here for. We are here for the long, patient hunt, and for the strange, quiet way it ended. So let the details soften. Hold only this, that someone was out there, and that for a long time, no one could find him. The investigation became one of the largest Britain had ever known. Think of the scale of it. Thousands of officers. Hundreds of thousands of interviews. Letters and statements stacked in rooms until the floors had to be reinforced to hold the weight of all that paper. Imagine those rooms now. The hum of fluorescent light. Card indexes in long wooden drawers. Typewriters clattering through the night shift. Tea going cold beside an open file. The detectives worked with what they had, which in those years meant paper. There were no computers to search, not as we know them now. Every name, every car, every scrap of a description had to be written down by hand, filed by hand, found again by hand. And the man they were looking for had been questioned. More than once. His name was already inside those great mountains of paper. But it lay buried among so many thousands of others that no one could lift it out. This is the quiet tragedy at the heart of the case. The answer was there all along. It was simply lost in the sheer size of the search. The very thoroughness that should have caught him had become a kind of fog, thick enough to hide him in plain sight. There was another fog, too. At one point the investigation received a series of letters and a tape recording from a man claiming to be the one they sought. He spoke with an accent from the northeast of England, from a place called Sunderland, by the sea. The voice was played across the country. Posters went up. People were asked, "Do you know this voice?" And the detectives, trusting it, began to set aside any suspect who did not sound like that recording. But the voice was a lie. It was a hoax, sent by a man who had nothing to do with the crimes at all. And because the true offender did not have that accent, the hoax quietly pushed him further out of view. It is one of the saddest turns in the whole story. A false trail, followed in good faith, that led the search away from the very door it should have knocked upon. So let us hold the picture as it stood. Years had passed. The files were vast. A false voice had pulled the hunt off course. And still, somewhere out in the wet northern night, the man they wanted drove his car along ordinary roads and was not found. Now, here is where our story turns. And I want you to notice how small the turning is. Not a dramatic chase. Not a brilliant deduction made over a desk at midnight. Something far quieter than that. Something that could have happened on any night, to anyone. It is the 2nd of January, 1981. The Christmas lights are still up in the windows. The new year is 2 days old. It is cold, and dark, and a little misty, the way January nights are in the north. We are in the city of Sheffield, in a quiet area, near some offices, where a car sits parked with its lights off. 2 police officers are on patrol that evening. An ordinary patrol. They are not hunting anyone in particular. They are simply out in the cold, doing the steady, unglamorous work that fills most of police life. A sergeant and a younger constable. Their names were Robert Ring and Robert Hides. Two men named Robert, out in the dark, doing their rounds. They noticed the parked car. There is a man in it and a woman. Nothing about this is dramatic. It is the sort of thing patrol officers check a dozen times a week. They approach. They speak to the man. And then the sergeant does the most routine thing imaginable. He checks the car's number plates. And the plates do not belong to the car. That is all. That is the whole of it. A small mismatch. A registration that did not match the vehicle it was fixed to. In any other moment it might have been a minor offense, a stolen plate, a quick note in a book. But on this night, it was enough. It was a reason to take the man in. A reason to bring him to the police station and ask him a few more questions. Feel how thin that thread is. If the car had been parked elsewhere. If the officers had walked a different street. If the plates had matched. The whole vast investigation, all those years and all that paper, came down at last to two patrolmen and a number that did not add up. At the station, the questions went on. And slowly, gently, the picture began to come clear. There was a small but important detail. Before he was taken in, the man had asked to step away for a moment, and in doing so he had quietly set something down, out of sight, near where he had been stopped. When officers went back and searched that ground, they found what he had tried to leave behind. And as the hours passed and the questions deepened, the man's calm began to fail. After all those years of never being seen, of slipping through every net, he was sitting under the plain light of an interview room because of a false number plate on a parked car. And at last, he began to speak. The following day, he admitted who he was and what he had done. His name was Peter Sutcliffe. He was a lorry driver, married, living an outwardly ordinary life. He had been interviewed during the investigation several times, and each time he had been let go, his name returning to the great drifts of paper. The thing the whole country had searched for years, had been an unremarkable man in an unremarkable car, undone in the end by a routine check on a cold night in January. He was charged, and in the spring of 1981 he was tried at the Old Bailey in London. He was convicted and sentenced to imprisonment, and he was never again free. He spent the rest of his life in custody, first in prison, later in a secure hospital, and he died, many years later, still confined. The long shadow over Yorkshire lifted. The porch lights could be turned off again. The towns of dark stone went back to their ordinary reign. And now, as the story settles, let us sit for a moment with what it leaves behind. There is something quietly humbling in how it ended. So much effort, so many thousands of hours, the largest manhunt of its age. And in the end, the breakthrough came not from the great machinery of it all, but from two officers on a routine patrol, doing a small, ordinary task with care. A number plate that did not match. A question asked. A man brought in from the cold. It is a reminder, perhaps, that the world often turns on small attentions, on someone doing the dull and necessary thing properly, on an unremarkable evening, when no one is watching. The grand schemes matter, but so does the steady patrol. So does the careful glance. So does the willingness to check the small thing that does not quite fit. The case changed how Britain investigated crimes after it. It led to new ways of storing and searching all that information, so that a name like his could never again be lost in the paper. Out of the long fog came a clearer way of seeing. That, too, is part of how this story closes. Not only an ending, but a lesson carried forward into all the quieter nights that followed. But you do not need to carry any of that now. The story is told. The man was found. The streets grew calm again. And the small, patient work that ended it has its quiet place in history. So let your thoughts grow soft. Let the moorland mist roll in and cover everything gently. Let the amber lamps go dim, one by one, along the empty street. There is nothing left tonight but rest. The hunt is over. The file is closed. And the night is quiet now, and yours. Sleep well.